While canned salmon might not receive the same attention as canned tuna, it's just as affordable, nutritious, and versatile an ingredient. Keep watching, and by the end, we bet you'll be hooked on canned salmon. Salmon is one of the healthiest fish options out there. It's packed with protein and omega-3 fatty acids, as well as several vitamins and minerals. The high levels of omega-3 fatty acids make it an especially heart-healthy food, with the American Heart Association recommending at least 2 servings of fatty fish like salmon per week. While the word fatty might scare you off, it shouldn't. Omega-3 fatty acids are known to help decrease the risk of stroke and heart disease. Salmon is high in fat, but it's the unsaturated kind. Unsaturated fat, according to the Harvard School of Public Health, can help lower blood cholesterol and inflammation. Harvard Health Publishing puts canned fish on the same level as fresh health-wise, and a USDA study found slightly higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids in some canned salmon than in fresh salmon. Want specific numbers? 1 serving of canned salmon will provide at least 40% of the recommended daily intake of protein, at least 42% of the recommended daily intake of selenium, and at least 63% of the recommended daily intake of omega-3 fatty acids. It's high in vitamin D, which helps maximize calcium absorption, and is a good source of B vitamins that support skin and nerve health. Most canned salmon contains only salmon and salt. The added salt acts as both a preservative and flavor enhancer. But if you're watching your sodium intake, take a look at the nutrition label. 1 serving of most canned salmon brands contains somewhere between 200 and 300 milligrams of sodium, or around 10% of the recommended daily intake. Chicken of the Sea canned salmon and Kirkland's Signature canned salmon all range between 200 and 240 milligrams of sodium per serving, while Bumblebee canned salmon creeps up to 250 milligrams. Star-Kissed canned salmon contains a whopping 320 milligrams of sodium per serving. To reduce sodium levels, you can always rinse your canned salmon after draining the liquid, per food scientist Dr. Andrew Clark. This shouldn't reduce the levels of omega-3 fatty acids in the fish. While the importance of flavor can't be understated, it's also useful to know whether canned salmon is better for you than canned tuna, or vice versa. Nutritionally speaking, they're both pretty healthy, with high amounts of protein that are roughly equivalent, though salmon contains a little more. Tuna, whether fresh or canned, is leaner than fresh or canned salmon, but as previously mentioned, the fat in salmon is the good kind. And it contains higher levels of those beneficial omega-3 fatty acids than tuna does. Interestingly, tuna packed in water retains more of its omega-3 fatty acids than tuna packed in oil. Canned salmon is rarely packed in oil, but if you have the option, you should go for a brand packed in water to get the most health benefits. Per Healthline, canned salmon is also the winner when it comes to vitamin D, but otherwise, tuna fish is on fairly equal footing, or should we say, thinning.
Was I funny? No.
Salt content varies widely from brand to brand, but generally speaking, canned tuna and canned salmon contain comparable amounts of sodium. There is one other notable factor: mercury. Canned tuna infamously contains high levels of this metal, so the Environmental Defense Fund recommends limiting consumption and suggests canned salmon as a healthier alternative. Canned salmon does contain mercury as well, but at much lower levels. Per the Alaska Historical Society, the first salmon cannery in Alaska started in 1878. The salmon canning business expanded rapidly. In 1936, 8 million cases of canned salmon came out of Alaska alone. That's not to say the booming American industry was cause for unmitigated celebration. Overfishing and the absence of strict regulations was a real concern, as were the impacts upon indigenous people who traditionally relied on salmon stocks. Regardless of what was happening behind the scenes, by the early 1900s, canned salmon was popular among American consumers and people across the globe. It was around this same time, writes Slate, that canned tuna was initially introduced. Previously, tuna had not been valued or considered desirable. While tuna became a huge business in America by the 1950s and 60s, as of 2020, Americans were consuming 40% less tuna per capita than they were in the 1980s. The beginning of the pandemic boosted its profile as people were stocking their pantries with shelf-stable options. It did the same for its predecessor, canned salmon. Canned salmon is always salmon, but there's more than one variety of this fish. The 6 types of salmon found in North America are Chinook, coho, chum, sockeye, pink, and Atlantic salmon. Each kind of salmon varies in taste, texture, and appearance, ranging from pale pink, comparatively low in fat and relatively mild, to deep orange red, quite oily and strong in salmon flavor. You can find most of these salmon varieties as fresh or frozen steaks and fillets, but canned salmon is almost always labeled either pink salmon or red salmon. Pink salmon is the most common species found in the Pacific Ocean. Canned pink salmon is on the milder side, so it's great for those who find stronger tasting salmon too fishy. However, it can be a bit on the mushy side. Canned red salmon is sockeye salmon, and is often labeled as such. According to the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, sockeye is nicknamed red salmon because of the color the fish turn when they swim upriver to spawn. The flesh of sockeye is more vivid in color than pink salmon. Its taste is stronger and its texture richer and firmer. Another thing canned salmon has going for it is its sustainability, particularly compared with many brands of canned tuna. In either case, it's important to look for wild-caught and sustainably harvested fish to ensure the least environmental impact. Most canned salmon is made from wild-caught Alaskan salmon, in which case the label will note that fact. According to The Atlantic, these salmon populations are far easier to keep tabs on than tuna, which means they're not in danger of being overfished, although other factors like climate change do impact their numbers. Modern methods of fishing for salmon are also more environmentally friendly and less likely to result in unintended catches compared to tuna fishing. Although canned tuna that is sustainably harvested in certain waters is almost on par with canned salmon, per the Environmental Defense Fund, the ETF rates wild Alaskan salmon as the best choice, ecologically speaking, and also notes its low mercury content. Farmed salmon that is raised in net pens is labeled the worst choice from an environmental perspective. Even if your salmon was caught in Alaska, that doesn't necessarily mean it was packed in the United States. Many brands process at least some of their catch in factories in Thailand, Vietnam, and China, which of course means greater carbon emissions associated with transportation. As with canned tuna, canned salmon is fully cooked and ready to eat right out of the tin. Unlike tuna, canned salmon sometimes contains skin and bones, primarily because the fish are smaller overall, and it's more difficult to cut portions of boneless flesh from them. This can actually be a good thing, nutritionally speaking. Canned salmon with bones contains a higher amount of calcium, and the cooking process softens the bones so they're easily crushed with a fork or your fingers when breaking up the meat. Any gelatinous skin can be picked out, but per Healthline it has more omega-3 fatty acids than the meat does. If the skin and bones gross you out, skinless and boneless canned salmon is widely available. Naturally, it costs a bit more due to the additional processing, but not so much that it's likely to be a deal breaker. Wild Planet's skinless and boneless sockeye salmon, for instance, costs about 25 cents more per ounce than its sockeye with skin and bones. If you're curious about how canned salmon is made, the Bumblebee description of their salmon canning process is pretty standard. Heads, fins, tails, scales, and other unwanted parts are removed before the fish are cleaned, cut to size, and added to cans along with salt. Lids are sealed and stamped, and the canned salmon is cooked, cooled, labeled, and packaged for shipping. Need some ideas about how to eat canned salmon?
You make yourself a dang quesadilla.
Sure. But why not start by treating it any way you would tuna? Try a salmon salad sandwich, with or without mayo. You can serve it on crackers or greens if you're avoiding bread. You can add canned salmon to pasta to bulk it up and boost the flavor. It's also great on top of a simple garden salad. Or you can make a salmon Caesar if you're feeling fancy. Salmon patties are another easy way to transform canned salmon into a meal. Experiment with different spices to change them up. At breakfast time, try stirring canned salmon into scrambled eggs or quiche to start the day swimmingly. Anytime you need to incorporate a low-effort protein into something you're cooking, canned salmon is a great choice. Canned salmon's shelf life can easily extend past the use-by date, which is primarily there to indicate how long it will taste its best. And do you know how long canned it lasts under good conditions?
I don't know.
Generally, canned salmon will keep at least 3 to 5 years unopened and properly stored. Ditto for salmon that comes in a vacuum-packed pouch. Store canned salmon in a cool, dark place with fairly consistent temperature, and throw away any cans that develop leaks, bulges, rust spots, or severe dents. If the can looks fine, even if it's several years out of date, go ahead and open it. As long as the salmon still smells good and looks normal, it should still be safe to eat. Once you've opened canned salmon, store any leftovers in the fridge for no more than a few days. You may have heard that keeping opened cans in the refrigerator can leach metals into your food. While that is possible, especially for higher acid foods, the USDA says it's safe to do so for at least a few days. However, your canned salmon will probably taste better and worry you less if you transfer it to a glass or plastic container first. Still Tasty says you can freeze canned salmon in an airtight container for up to 3 months. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more mashed videos about your favorite foods are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.